Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified. In this recap edition, we are going to do a recap of the concepts that we have learned in the past 1 week. So, as we can see that we have learned close to 25 concepts in the preliminary portion and then close to 15 concepts that we have learned for the mains portion. So, the purpose and objective of this session is to revise and to provide a quick reinforcement of the concepts that we have learned throughout the week. So without further delay, let us begin our session. On Monday, 15th of January, the session was taken by Gaurav sir. And in the preliminary section, the following topics were taken. The first topic was with respect to ammonia pollution. Second was with respect to Bogali Bihu, that is a festival that is one of the variants of Lohri that is celebrated in the state of Assam. And then there were issues that were taken with respect to the issues relating to food procurement and FCI. And from the standpoint of mains, we took the topics with respect to volcanic eruption and the concept of volcanism, which is an important aspect of geographical landscapes in GS1, and issues relating to internal security and terrorism that comes under the head of GS paper 3. Now, let us discuss the first topic that was taken up on the Monday. So the topic was ammonia pollution, and then the reference for this topic was taken from the Hindu reporting that again Yamuna mein the levels of ammonia are rising at an alarming level. So when we talk about any kind of pollutant, specifically with reference to our preliminary exam, 3 points or 3 dimensions are to be kept in mind. The first point on which UPSC tries to frame the question is with respect to the sources of that pollution. The second aspect is with respect to the impact of that pollutant on the health of human beings or the overall impact on the humankind. And the third aspect is with respect to any kind of interventions, global or otherwise, which have been taken up by the government. So let us discuss, let us quickly revise what are the sources. So the sources for ammonia are divided into 2 parts. The first part is agriculture sources of ammonia pollution, and then second is non-agricultural sources. So the agriculture sources deal with leftovers of animal husbandry, ammonia based fertilizers, that is one of the most important source of ammonia pollution, because in India it is well known fact that farmers use ammonia fertilizers more than what is required amount. And then the second aspect is with respect to the non-agricultural sources of ammonia that is various kind of industrial processes, vehicular emission, and volatilization of soils and oceans. Now you tell me what could be the source of this kind of rising ammonia pollution in river Yamuna, because in the nearby proximity there is very less agricultural activity going on in the NCR region. Now let us discuss the impact of ammonia pollution. The first one is with respect to when a person inhales ammonia, it creates a kind of irritation in the respiratory tract and the lungs of the person. Then there are impact with respect to the eyes and skin, which causes irritation and burns when it comes in the contact of eyes. Then if a person ingests ammonia, it is very dangerous because it can cause issues with respect to the functioning of our lungs, kidney, and liver. And then obviously there are long-term impacts on the respiratory conditions of the people who come in frequent contact with ammonia. Now please try and comment in the comment box that if there are any binding or otherwise conventions that are related to the regulation and usage of ammonia at national level or at the global level. Let us quickly move on to the next topic, that is with respect to the festival of Bogali Bihu. Now Bogali Bihu, what is? It is one of the variants of Sankranti or Lohri, which is called in the northern India. So basically it is a harvest festival. Now festivals have an intricate linkage with our social structures, right? So because in rural India the primary mainstay of the economy is with respect to agriculture, and subsequently the reason that most of the festivals are related with respect to either sowing or the harvest. That is the reason. So this festival of Bihu or Makar Sankranti or Lohri is known by various names in the various states. For instance, if we talk about Punjab, it is called as Lohri. If we talk about Himachal Pradesh, it is called as Maag Saji. If we talk about UP, it is called as Kacheri. Then in Bihar, it is called as Makar Sankranti. In Assam, specifically, it is called as Bogali Bihu. And similarly, on the map, you can see that in various states, it is known by the different festival. For example, in Gujarat, it is called as Uttarayan. Similarly, so on and forth. Now, let us discuss the key takeaway points that we discussed, which were important, because the question was framed, the question was inspired because there was a photo of a lake that was published in the Hindu newspaper, and we had framed that particular question not just on the syllabus but also on the location of that particular lake. So the location which was given in the newspaper was with respect to the Bamuni lake. Now the key takeaway point is that UPSC might ask the concept of lakes and reservoirs is of frequent significance for UPSC, and UPSC has in past framed various questions with respect to the location of lakes in various parts of India. Right. So the takeaway point here is that Bamuni Lake is located in Assam. Again, an additional information that is being provided over here is that it is not a Ramsar site, because there is only one Ramsar site in Assam as of now, which is called as Deepor Bil Lake. Another important takeaway point with respect to that topic is that there were given two names of indigenous communities which live nearby the location of that particular lake. The first one is Kacheri community, which lives in Assam. So UPSC might ask, or you can always have additional information with respect to the tribal culture of Northeast, that Kacheri is an indigenous community which lives in Assam, and then Khamtis are also one of the indigenous communities living in Assam. The difference being they are the followers of Buddhist culture, and these are Kacheris are tribal communities. Now the third topic for prelims that was taken that day was with respect to the concept of food procurement. Why is it important for us to study? Because it directly relates to the examination in the prelims portion also. Along with it, food security is an important aspect of multidimensional concept of security, which is covered in economic section also, as well as security section also of GS paper 3. So now there are three concepts that are taken with respect to purpose of food procurement, so that it fulfills three criteria. First one being it provides security with respect to the operational stock. What is operational stock? Operational stock means that suppose there are 100 families that are living in particular area, and then out of that, let us say 50 are self-dependent and self-reliant on the market, right, and 50 are dependent on the public distribution system. So government must have a certain amount of stock available for those 50 families which are staying there in that particular area. Similarly, to take into account issues such as drought or flood or any other contingencies. For example, in the recent war between Russia and Ukraine, you see Ukraine is called as the wheat bowl of Europe, and because of Russian-Ukraine war, wheat supply drastically reduced in the global market. Now black marketeers, what they try to do, they try to export the good quality of wheat from India to abroad. So in order to maintain a strategic stock with respect to the wheat security, FCI also follows this function of keeping an strategic stock, and at the times of calamities and certain eventualities, so to say, we need food security for providing market interventions as well. जैसे कि for example we learned just now, we learned about the market interventions which were required when the demand of wheat suddenly rose in the European market, and we had to supply wheat we had to first supply and then make sure that sufficient stocks were available for the Indian populace as well. Now let us discuss what is the concept of volcano and volcanism. This thing was brilliantly taken by Vaibhav sir. In fact, I had a thing or two learn about the concept of volcanism when I saw this video. Amazing session that was taken up by Gaurav sir. Now, before moving on the further aspect, let us discuss what is the concept of volcanism, how volcanism is both a constructive force as well as a destructive force, and then we will move around certain kind of inquisitive questions or points of inquiries that may occur in the mind of UPSC in future with respect to the concept of volcanism. The significance of this portion lies with respect to the GS1 portion, in which it is directly mentioned that important geophysical phenomena. Geophysical means phenomena that is related to the movement of earth, such as earthquakes, tsunami, volcano, and cyclones, etc. Now you will notice that only cyclone is before from the before mentioned three concepts. Only cyclone is the odd one out, because that does not depend on the concept of volcano. Otherwise, volcanism, tsunami, earthquake, all these three concepts might be interlinked at some instances, and one might influence the other or otherwise. Similarly, UPSC syllabus also tells us about changing in critical geographical features, including water bodies and ice caps and flora and fauna, and the effect of such changes on the humankind. So, what is a volcano? Volcano is a crater in which magma comes out of the crater when the volcano faces any kind of disruption or seismic activity. Otherwise, also volcanism, there are two kinds of volcanoes which are categorized as active volcano and dormant volcano. So active volcano continuously bring out lava that is from the magma chambers, and then again it works as both a source of minerals, a source of rocks, but at the same time it also acts as a issue with respect to pollution and with respect to the destructive potential that it carries along with it. You might remember that in Japan there is a volcano known as Mount Fuji, which is an active volcano. It erupts from time to time, and then Japan carries out a kind of preparedness with respect to the volcanism in their country. Now, the video also discussed the distribution of volcanoes in the world, and we had discussed in that particular video a concept which is called as Circum-Pacific Belt. See, this is Pacific Ocean obviously, and then this is Circum-Pacific Belt, which is shown in the map. And then see, volcanism occurs on three kinds of boundaries. That is, first one being convergent boundary, second one being divergent boundary, and third one being intraplate boundary. So you must be knowing from your basic geographical knowledge that the earth is made up of 7 major plates and 6 minor plates. So there is no need to remember all the plates, but you must know the basics of these plate tectonic theory. So convergence happens, and then there are two again subdivision, that is continental plate, and the second one is oceanic plate. Now, what is the meaning of the term boundary? Boundary means a location where two plates meet. For example, this is plate A and this is plate B. So where these two meet, it is called as a interface of boundary. Volcanism might occur at the places where there are convergent boundaries, and that is the reason convergent boundary, that is the reason that here in this area or this portion of the world there are a lot of convergences between oceanic plates, because Pacific Ocean is the largest ocean in the world, and then it itself constitutes many of the plates that are located in the eastern and western Pacific Ocean. And then along with this, there is an interface of oceanic plates as well as continental plates, that is for example Nazca plate over here, and then Australian plate over here, right? So because of this convergent boundary, the location of ring of fire is over here, and then ring of fire constitutes most of the volcanic distribution in the world. Next, there is a concept of divergent boundary, right? So for example, when one plate converges over the other, the concept of volcanoes through fissures occur. So this is sea plate, this is continental plate. Why is sea plate going down? Sea plate is going down because sea plate is a bit this continental plate is a bit stronger and more powerful than the sea plate, and sea plate goes down and then it melts, and this melting of sea plate results into the formation of lava, and then this lava erupts through volcanoes. Similarly, divergent boundary, here what happens is that, let me erase it first. Divergent plate boundary means a boundary where two plates are diverging. The exact opposite phenomena of the convergence in the Pacific Ocean occurs when plates diverge over here in the Indo-Pacific region, right? So volcanoes also occur in the, sorry, not Indo-Pacific region, pardon me, Atlantic North as well as South Atlantic Ocean. So what happens is that again, when there is a space created by the divergence, this again creates a space for the magma to rush out and then create volcanism. But why do we see that very rare occurrence of volcanism occur in the Atlantic Ocean? The reason is that volcanism occurs, but because of the large expanse of sea over there between Europe and Atlantic Ocean, we do not notice it. And since the boundaries are diverging, so enough space is created, and since enough space is created between two plates, the gases escape very easily and very comfortably. So no huge gas is developed over there inside, and because of it there is no pressure created, and resultantly no huge volcanic events occur in the Atlantic Ocean. The third one is interplate boundary, the example of which is Hawaii. And then we move on and see how volcanism, earthquake and tsunami are the again destructive forces as well as constructive forces, and especially out of these two, volcanism and earthquake have to be seen as both creative and destructive forces. I have taken this diagram from NCERT. So how is it a destructive force, and what we are today and what we will be in the near future, it is reflected on this slide. So millions of years ago, 540 million years ago, we started with our evolution process of the earth, and then somewhere around 300 to 200 million years ago, we saw the formation of a giant continent or supercontinent called as Pangaea, right? And then after the forces of again the destructive force of volcanism and earthquake, we see how we see Earth today is that the Earth is divided into 7 continents, and then this is how we are. But have you ever wondered what will be the future? What will our future be? So scientists predict that again the creative forces or the destructive forces are in action today, and 280 million years from now on we will again see a formation of supercontinent by the name of Amasia. And see how beautiful it is that the southern part of our country India, we might not be alive that time, but the India is again clearly and beautifully visible over here in this supercontinent that will be formed 280 million years from now on, right? So this is the kind of inquiry or inquisitive mind you must be having as civil servants, that something has happened, we have already seen the past, but what about the future? What is the evolutionary process that is going on, and what will happen in the future, right? Then let us begin with again main specific topic that was taken in on Monday. Right. So the topic is important because it finds its significance in GS paper 3, in which internal security is specifically mentioned, and consistently UPSC has asked a question or two with respect to the internal security architecture of our country, or the challenges associated with internal security, or how to strengthen the internal security of India, right? So terrorism, what is the in that particular video we read about various aspects of terrorism, such as the origin of terrorism, then what are the issues around terrorism, the genesis of the problem, and with respect to terrorism, how terrorism is changing its form, right? So what is terrorism? Terrorism is systematic use of violence. See, I have highlighted the keywords, and we'll try to decipher the definition one by one by deciphering these keywords. So what is terrorism? First is terrorism is systematic use of violence to create a climate of fear, and to gain, the end result is gain political advantage, right? So why is it called as systematic use of violence? Because violence is, right, for example, Weber has called as that state has the legitimate use over the systematic use of violence. But again, what are terrorists trying to do? Terrorists are trying to mirror the state and trying to establish a concept of parallel sovereignty. So ultimately it is all about struggle for power. So they are also using systematic use of violence to gain to establish a climate of fear. Why climate of fear? Because as soon as they establish a climate of fear, people will become fearful and they will start questioning their own government and their own state, and the end result could be political advantage. And political advantage can be taken with respect to, for instance, say gaining sovereignty, secessionism, political coming to political power, so on and forth. Now, without further going deep into the issue of terrorism, which was already dealt by Gaurav sir very nicely in that video, let us try and recap what is the key difference between terrorism and Naxalism as a new aspect to our understanding, right? So here we have taken the concept of terrorism on our left, and UPSC can again obviously frame a question on 10 marker question on define and distinguish between terrorism and Naxalism, right? For example, UPSC can frame a question like, suppose both terrorism and Naxalism are challenging to the state sovereignty, but there are key differences between them. Now substantiate this question. And on the right I have taken Naxalism as an ideology, right? For example, in terrorism there is no concept of class struggle. Now, what is class struggle? Class struggle is again a politico-social concept given by Karl Marx, in which Karl Marx has said that history of hitherto all existing societies is a history of class struggle. So at the time of Marx, he used to differentiate between two classes, that is, one is bourgeois and then other being proletariat. Then here in Naxalism, similarly, uh, Naxalism gains its relevance from Maoism. Now, who was Mao? He was a Chinese leader who used to say that power flows through the barrel of gun. That means if you have to make a change, you have to be violent, which is directly antithetical to the ideas of Gandhi, who believed in pacifism. And then he used to say that we can bring big changes with a peaceful process. So Naxalism may, because it is influenced by the ideas of Marx and then subsequently heavily influenced by the subsequent ideas of Mao, there is a concept of class struggle involved. Again, therefore they specifically target businessmen, developmental projects, so on and forth. And they never, rarely it is seen that they will target the local populace, but whereas we will see that terrorists more often than not, they target the local populace. The second point of difference is that it lacks a coherent ideological base. However, political ideologies like Marxism, Leninism, and most importantly Maoism has heavily influenced the notion of Naxalism in India. Then again, it lacks intellectual support. But however, in the case of Naxalism, we will find that many intelligentsia has associated or has given intellectual support to the concept of Naxalism. Again, we already discussed that here religion is a base. However, this ideology is mostly secular in nature. Religion, again, like Karl Marx used to say that religion is an opium of masses. That means the state needs to be separated from the religion. So there is rarely you will find any kind of religious base to or legitimacy for their actions. Similarly, they often target civilians, right? Like we just studied in the definition, systematic use of violence to create a climate of fear. How do you create a climate of fear? By targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure. Then here civilians are generally not targeted, and then that is the reason, since they do not target any civilians or tribals, that is the reason they find a large ideological support from the local civilians as well as local tribals, and subsequently it is very difficult to capture the Naxalites. Now let us see another difference. They directly challenge the sovereignty of the state. However, in case of Naxalism, they go for issue specific. They are specific to issues. They are not about challenging the sovereignty of the state per se. They focus more on issue specific agendas like developmental issues, environmental issues, government clearance to the new projects in the greenfield area, so on and forth. Here, organizational structure might not be present. There can be even lone wolf attacks, as we have seen in the recent past. But here, in case of Naxalism, we see that there is a well-defined cadre. Cadre means cadre is based on hierarchy and positions, and there is a well-organized base in which they call their leader as commander, and then there are various posts associated with the Naxal cadre, right? Similarly, their economic motivation might not be present over here. See, very rarely you will find that economic motivation is present for terrorism. The issue is more emotive, right? However, here economic motivation is present. Economy not in the sense that they want the Naxalite wants to take a share of economic pie, but however, economic motivation as in they are reluctant to provide the natural resources of the natives in the hands of, let us say, capitalists. Here the last point of difference is that it is a global problem. It has emerged into a global problem after the September 11 attacks. And then here Naxalism is India specific problem. However, we see violent left wing, if we categorize it as in the broad framework of left wing extremism, we see that at various instances, even Europe and South America have seen various violent left wing organizations such as, let us say, M19 or FARC, so to say, right? Now we discussed various issues. Now let us discuss what are the way forward with respect to the issue of terrorism. They will discuss, and all these issues have already been covered in the main primary video as well. It is just a recap video, so we'll quickly glance through all the issues. So the issue, how to do the way forward, there are two aspects, that is strategic intervention, and then there is developmental intervention with respect to the concept of terrorism. Strategic intervention or military intervention will have the following components of intelligence gathering, better intelligence gathering and coordination between the various states as well as central agencies, and in between the state and state agencies. Then there has to be better training, because this again, terrorism is like a cat and mouse game, right? Cat and mouse game going on between terrorists and the security forces. So since the terrorists are evolving their practices, right, so states have to continuously evolve their own practices so as to be more creative in nabbing them. Then there should be joint collaboration and mock drills associated with the like-minded countries. For example, India and Israel also conduct counterinsurgency and counter-terrorist operations, right? Counterinsurgency and counter-terrorist drills and information sharing. Then there is a strategy with respect to securing key installations. Why? Because it is the recent trend that we have seen that security agencies and their key security installations were targeted by the terrorists in the recent past, right? And then the last one being carrying out counter-terrorism operations. And from the developmental developmental point of view, there needs to be developed a political consensus on, first, that there should be no differences when it comes to defining terrorism. There cannot be a dual policy of one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right? Terrorist is a terrorist. So America usually follows this policy that they differentiate, they makes differentiation between good terrorist and bad terrorist. So there should be a global political consensus as well as national political consensus. Then developmental administration needs to be carried out, and then people who have been left who have left or have stayed away from the developmental mainstream of India need to be brought back into the mainstream by providing developmental administration. Then there needs to be a better and more enhanced and more mature role of social media, and more importantly role of traditional media, and more importantly the role of social media as well. And then we need to focus on the role of civil society and role of citizens in shunning this practice or this ideology of terrorism, right? Moving on to the next day, that was Tuesday, 16th of January. the session was taken up by Vaibhav sir. So we took, from the preliminary standpoint, we took the following topics. The first one was with respect to World Economic Forum. The second one, why? Because Davos summit is happening or about to be conducted. And then the issue was with respect to Yemen conflict. Then the third one was with respect to digital lending guidelines, and the fourth one was with respect to the basics of inflation. See, when we brainstorm over which topics to take and which to skip, we always keep in mind that what would UPSC go for? How will this news become important for the from the UPSC's standpoint? So we work hard, very hard, with respect to how we approach the topics to create these daily videos. Now from the mains standpoint, we have taken, Vaibhav sir has taken two very beautiful and relevant topics. First one being with respect to the India-Russian relation. The context was that Jaishankar's visit to Russia and the subsequent message that President Putin sent for Prime Minister Modi. And then the second aspect with respect to our mains preparation was decline of multilateralism. So the first topic that we took that day was with respect to the World Economic Forum Davos summit. Now the key deliverables from that day's video are: UPSC has in the past twice asked about various reports that have been given by the World Economic Forum. So these reports that are highlighted in red, that is Global Gender Gap Report and Global Competitiveness Index, have been given by World Economic Forum. And who is this person? He is the name of this person is Klaus Schwab. He is the head of this organization. Now, why are these reports important? Because global reports provide an independent assessment criteria about the functioning or working of India's, let us say, democracy, India's economy, India's social structure, India's press freedom, so on and forth. How do we utilize these reports? So for instance, in our mains preparation, what do we try to do? We try to mug up two things. First, the ranking, and then second, more important than ranking, is the institution which releases these reports. But however, from your mains standpoint, again, this hard work that you do for your preliminary examination should not be wasted. For instance, when you are already doing hard work for remembering the institution, you also walk an extra mile and prepare the ranking in that report, and use those ranking in your mains examination, and improving the quality of your answers. So other reports that are published, coming back to the topic, other reports that are published by the organization are: first, Global Risk Report. Always remember, risk report is the keyword over here. Then Fostering Effective Energy Transition Report. This is not that important from UPSC standpoint. Then again, Travel and Tourism Development Index is published. Global Cyber Security Outlook. And then this is Future of Jobs Report. Again, if for a sincere and diligent student, what that person would do, he will just Google this particular report and find key findings or key standings or key opinions that have been expressed with reference to India, and then the student will use that as fodder material for their mains examination, right? Moving on, we took the next topic with respect to the Yemen crisis. We talked about the genesis. The genesis lie in two aspects. The first one being colonial legacy that has been left by the Britishers, and this colonial legacy is a bone of contention not just for issues between India and Pakistan, but throughout Middle East, with respect to even Yemen, even with respect to Israel-Palestine dispute, so on and forth. And then another is a religious angle that is involved, that is they are present over there. So now Houthis control this portion, that is north and western part of Yemen. And Houthis have a key point to remember is that Houthis are from Shia community, and south and eastern part of Yemen is controlled by Sunni Muslims. For a person, for a student with very inquisitive mind, what will he try to do? He'll try to understand what is not just the genesis of the conflict. Obviously, we have already talked about briefly about the genesis of the conflict lies in the ideological or religio ideological divide between Shias and Sunnis, and more importantly, the colonial legacy that has been left for the people. The second aspect would be for a student would be how did Saudi Arabia Saudi Arabia got involved into this conflict. So again, this was again very well discussed by Webber sir in that video, that as soon as, see, they started occupying the areas from the top, and as soon as this is the capital city Sana'a, as soon as Shias backed by Iran captured the capital city. Now, capturing the capital city or key ports in any armed conflict is of special significance, because as soon as you capital key port cities, you control the economic aspect of that country, and as soon as you capture the capital city, you have that strategic advantage that you can control the polity of that particular country. Obviously, so as soon as they captured Sana'a, that is Houthis captured Sana'a, and Houthis were again backed by Iran. So again, because Sunni world is again represented by Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, so that is the primary reason why Kingdom of Saudi Arabia got involved. Right now, let us briefly discuss about the third part of the video prelims video. The issue that we dealt that day was with respect to inflation. Again, a quick recap. What is the definition of inflation? That inflation means a general increase in the rise of prices with time is called as inflation. Simply put, this particular pen costed me 6 rupees, 5 rupees or so 3 years back. Now again, this same particular pen, or in fact the worst model of this same particular pen, a degraded quality model of this particular pen, costs me now 10 or 12 rupees per unit. So this is a general rise in the price with time of any product is called as inflation. Now, we also discussed the concept of indexing of inflation and why indexing of inflation is important. So, what is an inflation index? Index means a methodology or parameter to keep track of inflation with changing time. Right. So, why do we need an index? Because economy is very complex, and then we have to take care of many goods that have been produced in our economic setup in particular point of time. That is reference here is, let us say, it could be 1 year or so. So in that particular time period, what we have to do, we have to take into account what all factors that could be common to everyone, that have for the price for which has increased. So index includes various such factors or elements which every common man must be using, right? And a general increase in the price of those basket or those products, right, it will be an indicator of inflation. For example, our food basket or our index includes uh, food, housing, health, and education. And as you can see in this bar graph, food and beverage constitute the largest share, that is 46% in the basket of inflation index. Then there are issues like the second highest is contributed by miscellaneous things that are purchased by us individuals. The third one being housing, fuel and light. so on and forth. So these are the food basket which are used as an indicator of inflation, right? Now let us discuss the first main issue that was taken on that day, that is with respect to India Russia relations. What is the mapping of this area? It comes from the syllabus, in which uh, it mentions general studies paper 2 syllabus, which says that effect of policies of developed and developing countries in the national interest of India. What all policies are framed by developed countries in the west and developing the rest of the world, which could be of prominent or primary interest to our country, right? So similarly, India and Russia have been time tested allies. Even before our independence, Russian scholars and Russian thinkers had a sentimental attachment with respect to India. And then the country, again, despite the apprehensions and questions that are raised by the political intelligentsia and international relations scholars, that India is again moving towards the west and abandoning its age own relationship with respect to Russia, we are not abandoning or changing our stance, but again, at every instance, we are reiterating and reinforcing our relationship with Russia. However, there are changed geopolitical situations which are going on, which were very well discussed in detail in that video, the gist of which is given over here. What are the pertinent challenges with respect to Russia? The first is ongoing, unending war with respect to Ukraine. Right. For example, there is a recent scholar who just died recently. You must be knowing his name, Henry Kissinger. So Kissinger, in his one of the research papers, he wrote that Ukraine is like a porcupine. Right. You must be knowing about what is porcupine. Porcupine is an animal which has a lot of thorns kind of things on its skin. So he used to call that Ukraine is like a porcupine, and if you want to end Russia, so to say, you should get them into war, because Ukraine will destroy Russia. Any animal that tries to eat a porcupine ends up getting dead, because those thorns get into the stomach of that animal. Right. So this unending war, the nature of war had in recent times changed. Nature of war had become very small, but now, as we see and we'll see in the subsequent topic also, that there is a return of long wars, unending wars. Similarly, again an unending war is going on between Israel and Palestine, and then this is an example of again an unending war. So first, that is Ukraine war, that is going on for more than the anticipated amount of time, which is depleting Russia. Then the second concern is with respect to alignment with USA, because we signed three primary logistic support agreements with USA, and then we are diversifying our portfolio with respect, especially with respect to our Navy and Air Force. So, and then there is a development of Quad. So there is an apprehension with respect to the Russian mind that India is aligning more and more towards Russia. Sorry, not Russia or USA. So that is a cause of concern with respect to the security community of Russia. Then Russian view of Quad is such that Quad is a encirclement strategy that is adopted by America to counter the Russia. So that is again a misconception in the Russian mind. And then another concern with respect to India now is Russia-China closeness. And then Russia-China closeness again creates a kind of apprehension in our mind. Some of the limitations or challenges with respect to India-Russia relationship, or the questions with respect to India-Russia relationship, were discussed again in that video. The first one being that Russian economy is primarily an oil dependent economy. Now, traditionally, we used to see that relations were built on the foundations of strength between the states, right? But now in 21st century, the era of globalization, state is not a driver of international relations. State is just a steerer of international relations. The primary driver of international relation now remains economy. So since Russia has not diversified its economic portfolio, and his their economy primarily is oil dependent, first dependent, and then military equipment dependent, so that creates a kind of problem in the context of Indian investors or Indian businessmen, that they do not get any opportunity to invest in Russia. Then there are concerns with respect to defense exports to China. Whatever technology this Russians supply to us, the better and more enhanced version is again supplied to China. So our technology or our weaponry stands useless in front of the weaponry that is being supplied to China. And again, there was a cold peace between China and India in the Himalayan borders for past couple of decades, but this status quo was changed when Indian government started to build bridges and roads to the frontier areas of India, especially with reference to Ladakh, and then we had Galwan Valley clashes, and again the status quo is maintained. But at the same time, this area of cold Himalayas has again come under the hot, has again become hot. Then there are concerns with respect to Arctic geopolitics, and subsequently the linkage between Russia and China is extending and getting extended. This partnership is getting extended to Russia, China, and Pakistan nexus. So these are the concerns with respect to Russia. But despite all these issues and concerns, which were dealt in more detail with in that particular video taken by Vaibhav Sir, but still India remains important for Russia, and Russia remains important for India. What we can provide, what Russia can provide us, is a say in United Nations Security Council, right? Then what India can provide Russia is that India-Russia maritime cooperation. For on the similar lines of Sagar initiative, we can invite the Russians to explore the Indian Ocean region. And then from India's standpoint, Russian Arctic and Far East has strong potential with respect to the minerals and gems, right? So we can the problem always with respect to our business community has been that we do not find adequate opportunities when it comes to investing in Russia. So Russia has is about to open up Far East for investment. So Indian community and Indian business community can go over there and invest in mineral exploration, mining, and gemstones, right? The second aspect that was covered that day was with respect to decline of multilateralism. So multilateralism means, now first, before understanding what multilateralism is, let us try to map it in the syllabus. The mapping goes like this. Our GS paper 2 has certain aspect, that is bilateral and regional global groupings is given in our GS paper 2, and then agreements involving India or affecting India's interest. Similarly, important international institution, agencies, and their mandate has been a aspect of framing of questions with respect to GS paper 2. So this topic was inspired by an article that was written by a professor And then what we did in this article is we discussed the concept of multilateralism in detail, and then how multilateralism is declining, right? So at the heart of this debate is power. It can be political power, it can be economic power, it can be strategic or military power. The nature of power is such that it tries to constrict itself, it tries to consolidate itself, right? So when the various kind of theories were being proposed with respect to the realist school of thought, various scholars suggested polarity of power thesis. So from that polarity of power thesis, these kind of keywords like unipolar world, bipolar world, multipolar world, these kind of words emerge. So it might be confusing sometimes for the students who have just started their preparation, that what is a unipolar world or bipolar world or multipolar world. So now that we have clarified it, that all these words find their origin in the realist school of thought, and then the polarity of power thesis was first proposed and it contained various aspects such as unipolar world. Unipolar world means a world in which power is located at only one center. Again, bipolar means there are two poles. First is USA, the second one being USSR. So power is shared between USA and USSR and all these other countries, for example South America here and even Asia over here. It pays power of other countries are exercised in context of these two superpowers. There are further submodels that were with respect to loose bipolar and tight bipolar, which would be it would be going too deep into the theory, so let us avoid going too deep. And then there is multipolar world, and from this word multipolar world, multipolarity, from here polarity of sorry from here multilateralism, concept of multilateralism emerge, right? So multilateralism means that there are many people, many countries or institutions which share power, and international relations do not operate in straitjacket, and because of the complex interdependence that is being carried out with respect to one from one country with respect to the other countries and institutions, there is a notion of multipolarity and subsequent multilateralism. Now in that video, as per the scholar, what he said, he says that there is a decline of multipolarity, and then again if there is a subsequent decline of multipolarity, it would again mean that world is going again into either unipolar way or bipolar way. So let us discuss those points which the scholar suggests, which reflect as an evidence in favor of his hypothesis. So the first argument that he says is that there is a resurgence of nationalism. Resurgence of nationalism in a context that There is a rise of neo-Nazi parties in Europe as well as other parts of the world. And again, along with it, there are strong anti-immigrant sentiments which are seen with respect to various developed countries. Then there is rise of protectionism. Obviously, there is an ongoing war, kind of trade war ongoing between China and Russia. Then there is rise of minilateralism. Minilateralism is a subcategory of multilateralism in which small regional groupings are made. For example, if we go by the definition, if there is a subgrouping between ASEAN is made for better convenience, it will be called as minilateralism. Then there is return of interstate war, which we have seen with respect to first Russia-Ukraine war, and then again these are long and traditional wars. The notion of war had changed from wars to surgical strikes, and then again or clinical wars, right? But again the notion of war has changed and shifted towards long and traditional war that have been the two fronts on which these wars are right now being fought, first being Russia-Ukraine and the second one being Israel Palestine. Then there the terrorism, it remains a permanent and perennial issue for global community. Then challenges, emerging challenges in the Indo-Pacific were again discussed with by Weber sir with respect to the emerging challenges with respect to the reassertion of dominance or sovereignty by China. So all these things pose as a challenge to the multilateralism, and then subsequently these need to be tackled. Right, now moving on to Wednesday, the session was taken by Ankit sir. The aspects with respect to the preliminary paper, the first one that was taken was with respect to National Essential Diagnostics List. The second one was with respect to Saint Thiruvalluvar, and the third one was with respect to the light emitting diodes. From your mains standpoint, again we covered two important aspects from GS paper 3. See, where else will you find all these kind of good discussions happening when it comes to your mains preparation? And moreover, the issues that we cover over here with respect to our mains preparation, you will never find all these issues covered in detail in any traditional book. Why? Because traditional books have a set pedagogy and they have a limitation with respect to continuously changing current affairs. So when we integrate the traditional knowledge that is given in standard books with the analysis part which is given in newspaper, we come up with such videos for you people to watch. Now coming back to the topic, the first one is National Essential Diagnostics List. The key four keywords over here is that it is a national list, so there must be some institution over here who must be making this list, or ultimate controlling authority for responsible authority for this list. Now the second one being Essential Diagnostics List. By diagnostic list, we mean that before providing any kind of prescription, the first step for identification of any disease is with respect to the diagnostics, right? So National Essential Diagnostics List is a list that is being made by which institution? The people who have watched this video, the video that day, particular day diligently, must be remembering that it is made by ICMR. Now we dealt with this institution in detail, and as the screen grab also shows that it is an autonomous body and it is registered under Societies Act. So this is an important aspect to be remembered with respect to prelims, because what they try to do, they try to change the nature of body. They'll try and say in the multiple choice questions, what they'll try to do, they'll say that this is a statutory body or so on and forth. That is how the commission tries to confuse the students. So the point to remember here is that it is registered under Societies Act and is an autonomous body. Then NEDL is an essential and most basic list of uh, diagnostics tests which are essential for identifying the diseases. Now this list is developed as per the recommendations and model list that was published by World Health Organization in 2018, and on the similar lines we have uh, established and identified various diseases and various diagnostic tests that are run for the identification of those diseases. And the better part of our list that is being proposed by ICMR is that it contains the diagnostic tests at all levels. So it is ever more compassing and more comprehensive than the WHO list of essential diagnostics tests. Now moving on to another interesting topic, the context was that that on that particular day a photograph of Saint Thiruvalluvar came in newspaper, but the saint was wearing a saffron robe. So the context is not important for us. What is important is the personality or the scholar. So what is the mapping of this topic? It directly relates to GS paper 1, that is art and culture. And then again, interestingly, UPSC rarely frames these kind of questions, but in past UPSC has framed from your ethics paper, GS paper 4, they have framed one question on moral thinkers. The question was very interesting. What, in the context of this quote, what do you mean, or what is the relevance of this quote in the present context for you? And the quotation goes that falsehood takes the place of truth when it results in unblemished common good, right? So you must be wondering that truth is truth, and false is false. Now what does Tirukkural say? That, and again this scholar poet had a way of saying very beautiful wisdom, projecting his beautiful wisdom in the form of these beautiful quotes or couplets, which were called as kurals, right? So falsehood takes the place of truth when it functions as a better, or when it accomplishes some unblemished common good. So this is the context in which the couplets or wisdom of Tirukkural is important, not just in our GS paper 1 or a preliminary standpoint, but also from the mains standpoint. So the key takeaway from that video is that Tirukkural contains, so Tirukkural is the writing written by Saint Thiruvalluvar. The key takeaways are it comprises of 1300 couplets, which are called as chorals, which are divided into three parts. First part being moral philosophy, from which this quote came. Second part is with respect to statecraft and warfare, and then third aspect is with respect to utilitarianism. Now if we go into a brief we go into little bit detail of this uh, ideology or idea. If you are abreast with the concept of utilitarianism that was proposed by Jeremy Bentham, so similar sounding ideas that even a lie can have a utilitarian function to perform, right? Even lie can have a utilitarian function to perform. So similarly, his ideas are more of a utilitarian nature. These are not Kantian ideas which are in absolute black and white. See what Kant would say, that lie is lie, truth is truth. But what Tirukkural tries to say is that if lie saves more lives, for example, in certain situation, then lie takes the place of truth. So that is all. Now let us go a little bit deeper and try to establish a comparison between the theories of statecraft which were provided by Tirukkural and then the theory of statecraft provided by Kautilya. So the key difference is that Thiruvalluvar provided 6 elements to the theory of statecraft. The first is Patai, that is army; Kul, that is treasure; Amaiku, that is minister. These are the 6 prominent elements without which a state cannot function. And every malice, every problem of the state that it faces today, that must be with respect to any of these 6 elements. That is what was said by Tirukural. Natpu, Kuti and Aram. The corresponding modern names for these are given on the slide. However, the similar theory of elements of a state, which is called as Saptanga, which translates into 7 limbs of a state, was given by Kautilya. The first one being the king, second one being Amatya or the minister, third one being people, fourth one being Durg, that is castle or fort, fifth being treasury, sixth being Dand, that is punishment, and the seventh one being ally. So Tirukural also talks about allies. He also talks about people. He also talks about forts. Where are the forts? Here are the forts, right? He also talks about treasury. The only element that is different in the 7 limb theory of Kautilya is with respect to Dand, that is punishment. So this is a little bit more value addition to your already existing understanding. Now the next topic that we took that day, that was with respect to the concept of light emitting diode. The mapping of that article comes from the important aspect of science and technology developments and application in everyday life. UPSC has a quota of around 10 to 12 questions when it comes to current affairs based technology and science based questions. So LED has been asked twice in the past, and there are chances that LED might be repeated in the near future when it comes to the preliminary exam, or might come repeat in the mains examination. For the further details of this video, you can go back and watch this video, right? But let us take this journey one step forward and see what are the advancements that have been made with respect to the LED. So the terms like organic LED, OLED, these are also frequently in news, but there is another advancement which has come from the Cavendish laboratory. So this new advancement in the field of LED is called as perovskite LED or PELED. Now, what is perovskite? Right, so the perovskite is a mineral compound that is calcium titanium oxide. The formula for this compound is CaTO3. The interesting aspect, again, a coincidence if you would say, that it is again found only in the Ural, most abundantly in the Ural mountains, again in Russia. So Russia can never be taken out of the map of the world. One way or the other, you'll have to acknowledge Russia one way or the other, right? So the West might think that Russia has lost its relevance, but Russia will never lose its relevance. Now, this particular mineral is found in Ural mountains, that is Russia. So what are the specific highlights of this PLED? That is, first one being efficiency. It is 1000 times more efficient than traditional LED. Now you see, for this purpose, it can be used in high intensity lasers also. The next one being, it can provide more color purity. It has more tunability. Tunability means it can be changed or amended as per our specific purposes. Then it has got flexibility, low cost potential, and more stable and long performing or enduring than the traditional LEDs. So just like, see, technology, how does it function? The new guard replaces the old guard. Just like tube lights, fluorescent lamps were replaced by LEDs. Maybe in the future PLED will replace the current LEDs. This is how the world works. From the mains standpoint, the first topic that we covered that day was with respect to the concept of gig economy. It finds its relevance in Indian Economy General Studies paper 3, which specifically highlights that issues related to employment and unemployment are important and significant when it comes to the Indian economy. Let us quickly discuss what are the key determinants or why Indian economy is getting further gigized, right? So to say, so why the nature of Indian economy is changing in a way that it is further able to provide only gig nature of employment, but not traditional orthodox nature of employment that is permanent in nature, right? So the aspects being covered over here and more detailed covered over there in those videos. The first one being rapid growth of digital communication. Second one being that is UPI and banking linkage. Right. Second one being reduced operating costs. Third one being flexibility of operations. Reduced operating cost, obviously, from whose standpoint? The employers. The employer's standpoint, reduced operating cost is one of the biggest factors, because how does economy function? How do we make our product profitable? We reduce the input and maximize the output. Next, flexibility of operations. Even from the standpoint of the persons who are involved in the gig economy, they can do multiple jobs with multiple vendors, right? Then the another aspect is with respect to slowdown in formal economy, huge demographic dividend. Whatever amount of jobs that we can produce, there is always a surplus of population when it comes to India. And the last is rapid urbanization. What does urbanization do? It creates a kind of localized pockets of high net worth individuals which live in cities like, let us say, Bangalore or Gurgaon or Noida or Pune. So in these cities, people have a lot of money, but they do not have time. So what they will do, they will go for delivery services, for example, like Amazon, for example, like Blinkit, so on and forth. So urbanization is one of the primary drivers of gig economies in India. But at the same time, what we have to see the demerits or the issues that the gigization of economy can further produce for our country. The first one being that it will make our economy further informalized. Our economy, one of the features of our economy is that we have a lot of very less formal sector employment, and most of the employment that is offered by our economy is informal in nature, right? So it will lead to further informalization of economy, right? Then another challenge is with respect to that it is beyond the legislative purview. Now see what is beyond the legislative purview, that is the gig workforce is beyond the legislative purview. That is, as of now, there is no legislation that governs the gigization of worker. So again, since there is no legislation, no social security framework, these workers are further exploited, right? They do not enjoy a kind of job security with respect to their employers. The third one being the social security benefits. If we talk about the history, it is a long drawn it has a long drawn struggle or history that is involved for the provisions of social security benefits. So now, since these security benefits used to incur a lot of burden for the employers, that is why gig economy has come into picture, so that they do not have to provide social security benefits. What are the social security benefits? Say maternity benefit leave, right? Healthcare insurance. They have to provide for certain severance packages, so on and forth. So these social security benefits are not present over there for gig workers. Weekend bargaining power of labor. See, labor already enjoys very less or insignificant bargaining power when it comes to bargaining with the employer, but at the same time, because of the economy moving towards the gig economy, unfortunately for us, bargaining power of the labor has further declined. Then when we go into this kind of interactions in which we have a long term relationship between employer and employee, so this kind of relationship ceases to exist, and we move on from one gig to another gig. So that is another challenge, that is with respect to the gig economy. Now let us quickly see what is the way forward. That was again suggested beautifully, summarized by Ankit sir. So the first one being code on wages. Certain recommendations have been provided by the government, and incorporations have been made with respect to gig workers in code of wages, code on social security, and e-shram portal pay registration has been made mandatory. So what could be the way forward for gig workers? First one being recognition. The first instance, you must have seen that Zomato workers have gone on strike, or Uber, you must have faced certain inconveniences on particular days on which Uber auto walas may have gone on strike. So the primary reason for these strikes is renegotiation of the share of those rents that we pay them for their services. So first aspect is with respect to recognition of gig workers. This recognition will come from legislative intervention. Second one being insurance. So insurance can be with respect to the healthcare, or there can be insurance with respect to the occupational hazards. The third one being security and welfare fund should be established, a corpus from the state governments or central government, or the employers. There needs to be that a corpus of funds is established, and then any kind of eventuality in context of gig workers can be met with respect to this corpus. So in recently, Rajasthan government before elections had proposed a corpus of 200 crores for gig workers in Rajasthan. And then Niti Aayog has again proposed a raise framework, right, for the recognition and development of gig economy in India. The first aspect is with respect to recognition, that you provide adequate recognition to those gig workers. Then allow augmentation. Third one being incorporation of interest as in provisions for social security benefits, provisions for healthcare insurance or occupational hazard insurances, support for workers, provide emotional, economic, and psychological support to the gig workers. And then lastly, make sure that to ensure that the benefits are accessible. More often than not in India, the problem lies with respect to the implementational part. We are very good at making legislations, but the problem lies in the implementational aspect. So ensure that benefits are equitable and accessible to all the gig workers, right? Moving on quickly, we will see the second aspect of the mains lecture that was taken that day, that is with reference to the government budget. So the syllabus mapping of this area comes from government budgeting, issues related to mobilization of resources and economy in India. We'll see quickly what is the need for sustainability of debt. So government debt means the sovereign debt. If we talk about India, the center and state का combined sovereign debt is 85% of GDP. right? More of center and less for states, right? So why is there a need of sustainability of debt? The details and analysis part was covered by Ankit sir over there in the video, but let us briefly discuss what are the issues that are associated with the sustainability of debt. That if our debt is unsustainable, there can be risks associated with respect to our currency volatility. There can be risks that with respect to, see, this debt has to be at the end of the day paid, and in the interim time interest on the debt has to be paid. So if our debt becomes unsustainable, sometimes it might happen that even we are not able to pay the interest amount. And then the third aspect is with respect to the growth, overall growth and stability and the image of Indian economy. Because Indian economy, again, we need, because we are a developing country, we have to uh, take money from international institutions, and we have to, in fact, many economists agree that despite the need of taking the loans, we should not shy away from spending on social sector, right? So for social sector development we need loans, and those loans come from, let us say, for example, it could come from BRICS Development Bank, it could come from World Bank, it could come from Asian Development Bank, and so on and forth. So but these loans at the end of the day have to be paid back. If the government debts are again unsustainable, it creates a situation where our sovereign ranking and image gets tarnished, that we are not able to service the debt, right? So growth, and for the growth and stability of our Indian economy, we need sustainability of debt. Why is there a need to manage debt? There is a need for to manage debt because it is it is one of our statutory obligation under FRBM Act. Then there are issues with respect to interest borrowing, cost of borrowing, and investor confidence. Any kind of investor is going to invest in Indian economy, first he'll try to make sure that how our economy is performing. So if economy is not performing and the government debts are unsustainable, it will crowd out the investments from Indian economy. So we also discussed in that particular video what could be the way forwards. In a brief manner, we would discuss that first step is consolidation of debt management procedure. By consolidation we mean that various states as well as center have their own debt management procedures. Again, we will see one of the issues that was taken by Gaurav sir on Saturday was again similar to the management of debt or guarantees. So a uniform procedure for develop consolidation of debt management is to be put forth, and then there is a recommendation to build an independent fiscal council to define, assess, and forecast public debt, right? So these all issues were covered in detail with all the facts, right, and examples. So if some student wants to watch it again, and if someone wants to make notes of it, you can go back and watch that video again. On Thursday we had a video with Pooja ma'am. From preliminary standpoint, we covered topics that were in news that day. The first topic was Jagannath temple corridor. The second topic was with respect to gut microbiota, and the third topic was with respect to the places that are in news. The main discussion revolved around the report that is called as a report that came that day, before that day, that is known as ASAR report, annual state of education report. And then the second topic that she covered that day was with respect to the millets, and let's prepare for a millet decade. So the first news was with respect to Jagannath Puri temple. Let us do a brief mapping of that temple and then brief mapping in the syllabus. From the prelims standpoint, it comes under Indian art, culture and architecture. What are the key takeaways from that particular video is that this particular temple, that is Jagannath Puri temple, as you can see in this picture, this is a board of Lord Jagannath, right? So the key takeaways from this video are that it belongs to Vaishnavite tradition. Now UPSC, while framing multiple statement, multiple choice questions, what they can do, let us say they'll frame a question that the Jagannath Puri temple belongs to Shaivite tradition, right? So you need to be very cautious or careful while marking those statements as correct or incorrect. The next aspect is with respect to it was rebuilt by the Eastern Ganga dynasty that ruled over the portions of Odisha and Bengal. The name of the king was Anantvarman and it was built around 10th century, right, AD. And then it belongs to Kalinga architecture. Now what is Kalinga architecture? Kalinga architecture, there are three styles of temple architecture broadly speaking. The first one is Nagara style. The second one is Dravida style. So Nagara style is predominant in North India. Dravida style is predominant in South India. And they, in the meantime, they're developed at the interface of these two locations, that is the areas of Bengal, right? Right. These areas of Bengal and Odisha, this area is the interface between the northern India and the southern India. So in these areas developed a unique fusion of temple architecture which is called as Vesara architecture, right? So Vesara architecture, this temple belongs to, it has some elements of Nagara style and some elements of Dravida style. And this Vesara architectural temple, this dynasty was famous for its Vesara architecture, patronage for Vesara architecture. So interestingly, this dynasty, that is Eastern Ganga dynasty, did not just build this very world famous temple, that is Jagannath Puri temple. It is also famous for the Konark Sun temple, right? So this Konark Sun temple was again made by the same dynasty. This Sun temple is known for is Rath, right? And this Rath has 24 wheels. So this Sun temple depicts in architectural sense a beautiful chariot on which God's sun is resting, and this is again a tribute to the sentiment that we as Indians have been very close to the nature worship, right? So this Rath temple has 24 wheels, that is 12 sets into 12 wheels on this side and 12 wheels on that side, and every wheel has 8 spokes, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8. These 8 spokes constitute 8 pairs. You must have heard sometimes Hindi words like do pair, teen pair. So when we talk about Indian concept of defining and dividing time into various segments, we use a notion of pair. So these wheels are like what do they depict? Ever movement or change in time. So 8 pairs into 3 means 24 hours a day, and 24 wheels, or that is 12 sets of these wheels, depict 12 months. So this beautiful picture was again used as a mascot for our G20 meeting that happened recently in New Delhi. Right. Moving on to the next topic that she took that day. That was with respect to gut microbiota. The key deliverable or takeaway points with respect to gut microbiota is that its utility or purpose is for overall human health. The key points are displayed over here. The first one being it helps in digestion and nutrient absorption. Then second aspect is with respect to regulation of immune system of humankind. Then the gut microbiota protects us against various pathogens, and then it also helps in the synthesis of various vitamins and metabolites that we undertake every day. Then there are issues or advantages of this gut microbiota with respect to neurological impact. They also overall impact our brain functioning. They are important for us for our overall metabolic health, right? Then studies have recently shown that gut microbiota has an impact on our overall mood and behavior, and subsequently they are also important for our disease prevention and treatment. All this is relevant for us because again in the preliminary part of the paper, UPSC has been consistent in asking about questions from science and technology portion. They have also asked questions with respect to the biology portion, right? So this is again an important aspect. Moving on to the first main topic that she took that day. The topics were inspired from the various reports, and the newspaper clippings are shown over here. That the report was obviously covered by both all the prominent newspapers of that day. So what is the syllabus mapping for this thing? First one being the aspect of social justice that is being covered under the head of GS paper 2. Then again the second aspect is with respect to schemes related to education and healthcare. The third aspect again we could say that role of NGOs in policy making. Why? Because this ASAR report is framed by an NGO that is known as Pratham NGO. So again, why are NGOs important? NGOs are important for our country because first because they formulate a part of our civil society, and the second aspect is that civil society inputs are very important and significant when it comes to the policy formulation and course correction by the government. See, otherwise government will become like narcissus. They'll bureaucrats will become like narcissus. They'll make policies and then they'll become very happy with the outcome because they are the ones who are making, they are the ones who are implementing, they are the ones who are taking feedback, and so on and forth. So independent third party evaluation of these policies is important. So the key takeaways that are the outcomes of this report, I would say that the first one being learning outcomes, they are more or less saturated now. 98%, that is a brief increase over the 97% targets that were there in 2018. Then enrollment trend, 2% or below not enrolled in the schools for the first time in 2022. So almost these targets have more or less stabilized. There is no drastic change in this report from the past year or so. The third aspect is even in this report, states from the northeast were covered, and then the Manipur, it showed that Manipur has the low government school enrollment ratio, lowest government school government ratio in the northeast. Then again there it raised concerns with respect to the foundational skills that are being acquired by the students or youngsters that are studying in schools. There are issues with respect to skill challenge, and then again the another aspect with this specific report is that academic pressure used to be traditionally considered as an urban phenomena, that there is an academic pressure on the students. We always used to talk about that the bags of our kids are becoming heavier and heavier. So now this report has first time revealed that academic pressure is not just an urban phenomena, it has seeped into the tier 2 tier 3 towns as well, and this academic pressure has become academics has become less relevant for future, and ironically academic has become less relevant for the future, but at the same time the weight of the bag, school bag, is increasing day by day. Then it again, if it focused on another aspect that the NEP 2020 has talked about, the technological use of technology in education. What they found out was that almost all the households, even in rural India now own a smartphone, but that smartphone is unfortunately not used for academic purposes, but it is used for more of entertainment purposes. Then lastly, the point that was highlighted by the report was that only 6% of the surveyed persons, that is youth, are currently enrolled in the vocational courses. So now vocational courses are unfortunately in India looked down upon. If a person takes admission in let us say diploma courses or so, he might become a very good engineer in the future, but people society looks down upon that person, that he must have not have been able to study higher, so that is why he has gone for diploma courses or vocational courses. So the Gandhian idea of integrating skills and academia is again absent, or is not found in the academic structure of modern India. So key takeaways from this session were that what are the suggestions, she also focused on suggestions, what are the key issues, the government interventions that and schemes that have been brought in. The first one being this Nishtha scheme for teacher training, right? Then again, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan 2.0, with its emphasis on information technology and enabled services for the improvement of education, is again could again work as way forward. Then again, the video also focused on other way forwards and recommendations that could be used for the development and strengthening of education of children in India. For further details, you can go and watch that particular video. Moving on to the next issue, that the second topic that was taken for that day was with respect to millets. Now again, millets is considered as one of the most environmentally friendly dietary options. The significance of millets lie in the aspect that in India we are now suffering from we have overcome most of our challenges that were there with respect to the traditional diseases, but now new issues and diseases in the form of lifestyle diseases are coming up in India. So the past year, under our G20 presidentship, we also, the year was also declared as year of millets. We in that particular video dealt on the various aspects like geographical aspect, environmental aspect, what are the sowing conditions, what are the harvesting conditions, so on and forth with respect to millets. For the details, you can again go back and watch this video. Let us recap what are the challenges and suggestions and way forward with respect to the uptake of millets in the dietary in the food plate of a common Indian. So what are the issues? There is change in dietary habits. After the green revolution, the I would say two most important drawbacks of that green revolution were, first, with respect to localization and uniformization of cropping pattern, that everyone wants to first grow either wheat or crop, and then again the second aspect is with respect to the Indian body type is not accustomed to overburdening or over reliance on carbohydrate. Even our grandfathers and so they used to take or eat millet dominated diet, right? But because of food insecurity that came naturally attached with millets in India, we had to go for green revolution. Obviously, that was one of the world's largest food security projects in the world. But the natural disadvantage or natural shortcoming was that overuse of fertilizers, a specific preference of only rice and wheat, and then third is the lifestyle diseases that come along with over reliance on carbohydrate as your primary source of diet. Then second aspect is with respect to poor awareness in the youth with respect to millets, more focus on rice and wheat. That is a direct outcome of what we would say green revolution. Then inconvenience in food preparation. So the basic concept involved over here is that see, rice and wheat, why the preparation is easier for these products. The preparation is easier because of a chemical compound that is present over there, which is called as gluten. What gluten does? Gluten makes the food preparation easier because it increases the stretchability of the dough, right? Dough is your base preparation. For example, if you would have gone for eating a pizza with your friends, you must have seen that pizza can be stretched. The dough of that particular pizza can be stretched to very thin crust. So what provides that stretchability to dough is the presence of gluten. Now these millets, they are devoid of any gluten in the food, so resultantly there is inconvenience in the food preparation for the common housewife, right? So then again, the another challenge with respect to uptake is poor income levels in the rain-fed areas. Unsustainable agricultural practices, again a direct outcome of green revolution, that every farmer wants only to sow the seeds seeds of the crop which are ensured by the MSP policy of Government of India. Now what are the way forward that are suggested in this context is that first one is that additional areas to be brought under the scheme. How do we bring out additional area for under the scheme of cultivation of millets? First one being that these are very resilient crops. They can grow from altitude of 0 meters to up to 2300 meters. So additional areas which are not being utilized for the cultivation of traditional crops like wheat and rice, they can be brought under the cultivation of millets. Then first one is with respect to there are 3 to 4 pronged suggestions with respect to the development of millet. First one is that we need to enhance the production, right? Second is with respect to change of attitude, so that can be done with respect to the marketing. Third one is with respect to the accessibility to the common consumer, and then fourth one is with respect to the governmental support that can be provided. So the recommendations are developed categorized in the similar way. The special agribusiness zones for processing of millet products and millet associated various FMCG products can be set up. Then third is, for example, millet associated FMCG products like protein bars are in huge demand, not just in India but also in USA and UK. So we can set up the millets which contain high amounts of protein and zero carbs can be turned into protein bars, and obviously they can be exported as well, right? Then Manrega funds can be utilized by the states for the development of these new areas, right? Then explore trade and export opportunities. Again, new markets are arising, for example markets like UAE, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, right? These markets were not traditionally considered as markets for millets, but now these are again coming up as new markets. Then again, encouraging contract farming, productivity linked incentive schemes for especially for millets. Then again, there is a Pradhan Mantri formalization of micro food processing enterprise scheme, PMFME scheme, which has a special component for micro food processing. Now why micro food processing is important is that grand level of food processing is not required for these products, right? the level of food processing which is required for a, let us say, setting up a flour mill, huge flour mill or rice mill, is different. And then micro food processing units can be set up for these millets. And then lastly, Sri Anna scheme. Sri Anna scheme, what it first it tries to change the attitude of people with respect to millets. And the second aspect is that with respect to this thing, government is, what government is trying to do, government is trying to popularize first by changing the name from millets to Sri Anna. Sri Anna is that the Anna which is offered to gods, right? So this will go a long way in changing the attitude of people towards millets, as well as the food millets are introduced in government run canteens and government offices canteens. At the same time, we left no stone unturned for popularizing millets in the recently concluded G20 presidentship of India, right? Bear with me for 2 more days, right? On Friday, there was a session, a very brilliant session that was taken by Vidushi ma'am. For preliminary, we took the following topics. The first one being Competition Commission of India. Second aspect was with respect to Panama Canal. Third one with respect to the yellow rust, right? Fourth one being with respect to the usage of satellite. And the last one with respect to Advertising Standard Council of India. From the mains standpoint, we covered 3 important issues. First one being poverty and associated issues. Second one being, since Iran fired certain missiles on Pakistan administered Balochistan, right, and they targeted certain terror groups and terror infrastructure, this area is again in news. And in this context, we covered the issues and relations of Pakistan and Iran in great detail in that particular video. And then for discussion, we took generative AI and copyright issues emerging in India, right? So first topic with respect to our subject of inquiry in prelims was with respect to Competition Commission of India. Why? Because these kind of agencies are always a subject of inquiry when it comes to our prelims stage, and they have consistently framed questions on various agencies and government departments, right? What is the syllabus mapping? There is a statutory body. What statutory body? And then what are the key takeaways with respect to Competition Commission of India? First one being that it is a statutory body. What is the meaning of a statutory body? The body that draws its power, first its origin and then its powers from a statute of parliament or state legislature, right? So this is an example of statutory body. It is the key body which enforces the Competition Act of 2002. What are the purposes? What are the key objectives? First one being to promote free trade and a healthy competition between the body corporate of India. And then see, the name itself suggests that it is Competition Commission of India. So in a free economy, there has to be a healthy competition, but at 2 key principles which are to be kept in mind while keeping a healthy competition is principles of fairness and equity. But what are the negative externalities that come along when it comes to promotion of competition? Is that there are issues of cartelization, unfair pricing mechanisms, so on and forth. So to keep those malices of the free market in check, we have this commission which ensures the fair pricing mechanism for the people of India. Now you can obviously go back and solve that particular MCQ also. We'll move on quickly to the concept or issue of yellow rust. Why was this in news? Because like Vidushi ma'am already covered, that because this particular thing news was in news because yellow rust instance have been observed recently. Let us look at the key deliverables of that particular video or subsection of that video. The first one is being agent. What is the agent? You need to remember the name: fungus Pusinia styriformis. I'm sorry, right? The second one being host. The host of this yellow rust is wheat, barley, and rye, right? Symptoms: what are the symptoms? Yellow orange streaks on the leaves of what? Wheat. Cycle: it has sexual as well as asexual cycle, and it is windborne and spreads through spores, right? Conditions: thrives in cold moist weather. So right now we are obviously going through winters, right? So this yellow rust also again thrives in the winters and it damages the wheat crop. Then control mechanism for this disease is that resistant varieties, genetically modified varieties. But as all know and understand that genetically modified crops in India have not been allowed for consumable crops or consumable items, right? Again, recently Dhara Mustard 11 DM11 has been given in principal approval for field trials. Then crop rotation, spacing, and usage of fungicides is important, right? Moving on to the first, see, there were two more topics for the prelims stage, but these were of factual nature, so I have skipped those topics. If you want to see those topics in detail, you can obviously go back and watch those topics. Here I have taken certain topics which have conceptual element involved to it. Then from the first perspective of mains examinations, we have undertaken the issue of poverty and associated issues, right? What is the syllabus mapping of this aspect? The syllabus mapping is with respect to the concept of inclusive growth and issues arising out of it under the head of general studies paper 3, right? So what are the key takeaways from that video? We comprehensively discussed various concept debates around the concept of poverty, how poverty, the academic interest leaned towards the issue of poverty not just after independence, but it was a pre-independence era, right? So for all those details you can go and visit the video, but key deliverable and key takeaway points are with respect to that. First one, we need to focus on the definition of poverty. So generally speaking, what is poverty? Is a condition where household income is below a necessary level. It can be, if suppose I am living in a household, I constitute an independent family, so I will consider, while defining, I'll consider that my household income. Again, if there is a differentiation, there could be an individual also, but generally speaking, it is household that is taken as a unit. So poverty is a condition. It is, again, we can argue, the scholars debate and argue on the conceptual aspect also, that whether it is the economic condition, whether it is a social condition, whether it is a psychological condition even, right? Poverty is a condition where household income is below a necessary level, a standard below which even maintaining basic necessities of the household, which is first three basic is food, clothes, and shelter, are not able to be met. Now, various committees have recommended various standards for measurement of poverty. One of the aspects on which poverty is measured is with respect to income criteria. the urban income for standard is for 1407 rupees per month, but obviously these are very old standards and parameters, right? And the rural income is 972 rupees per month. Then there is a calorie count method also. If people are watching, again I would request you to comment that what is the calorie criteria for measurement of poverty in India. Then again in that particular video we discussed issues like what are the economic reasons behind poverty in India, what are the social reasons, and what are the geographical reasons because of which poverty persists in India. Now what are the key deliverable or takeaway points? हमेशा यूपीएससी में while framing or answering your main question, first is your problem statement, and the first part of the question tries to establish the premise of the problem, right? So for that establishment of premise in your answer, you need to have the depth of gravity of understanding with respect to your the problem that is being assessed. But however, the operating part of the answer is that you need to have some suggestions or recommendations on how to move ahead or move beyond the problem, so that problem is no longer a problem, and now you have to deal with another problem that is emanating from the solution that, right, that you just solved, right? Just I'm joking, right? So suggestions and view forward have been comprehensively covered in that particular video. I would add further value to the suggestions that Niti Aayog in a recent working paper had recommended employment intensive sustained rapid growth. So again government ka the outlook of government is that when you provide employment and sustained employment, first one you ascertain a certain amount of rapid growth, and then second, in that process of growth you also engage more and more people which are contributors to not only the growth but also their houses are lit with, again they get the adequate monetary compensations, right? Then the second recommendation, second subhead was with respect to making anti-poverty projects more effective, right? More effective, that means that is an acknowledgement that the poverty alleviation projects have been there since the independence, but they have not been that much they have not performed with that much efficacy, right? So poverty alleviation projects, for example, housing for all, education, for example, Mahatma Gandhi Narega, so on and forth. These are all the anti-poverty interventions or anti-poverty projects which are carried with a dual objective of first developmental function, and then they have a direct incidence on removal of poverty. The third aspect that they recommended was that specifically with reference to rural poverty, they said Niti Aayog paper said that gram panchayats to target and identify the rural population which are actually poor, and then specific intervention with respect to those families need to be undertaken. Coming back to the previous point, how do we aim at making these projects more effective and efficient? Earlier, see, we always had obviously good intentions, but problem was with respect to the implementation of those schemes. But now we have, the government has a, so to say, magical wand of Jam Trinity: Jandan, Aadhaar and mobile interlinkage. With the help of this interlinkage, government can target with clinical precision the intervention projects. So government obviously hopes and aspires to make these projects more efficient and effective at dealing with poverty reduction. And the last but not the least, a utopian idea of universal basic income, which has been first implemented uh, in some form of the or the other in the past also, but it has become a political issue. So again, needs to be a relook at the idea of universal basic income in India. Finally, coming to the last day, that was Saturday, just before this particular day. From the preliminary standpoint, we took two topics. That was first one was with respect to state government guarantees. An interesting uh, note or research paper that was published by RBI a couple of days inspired this article. And then the second article was with respect to the Great Indian Bustard. From the mains standpoint, we took three important topics. First one was with respect to Nagar style temple architecture. So all of you boys and girls must be elated for tomorrow. So the inspiration of this article was Ram Lala temple that is being inaugurated tomorrow. Then we took the aspect of deep sea coral, because again a research finding has found out that there have been more number of deep sea corals than anticipated by the scientists in the previous instances. And then last article was with respect to capex push. Let us discuss what was the first article. The first article was with respect to the state government guarantees. Now let us briefly see what is the mapping for this article. It directly relates to the syllabus of GS paper 3, fiscal responsibility and budgetary management, FRBM Act, and government debt. In the previous instance too, we had discussed the concept and issues arising out of government debt with Ankit Singh. And then again this issue, while I was making you revise that particular aspect, again I had said that we'll again revisit this recurring issue in the later part of our lecture again, right? So what is a concept of state government guarantee? So before understanding state government guarantee, let us understand the concept of guarantee, right? Guarantee can operate between two parties also. Let us say you go to a shop and ask for a watch. You went to Titan and he said that, sir, this watch is 50 meters water resistant. And then on mechanical parts there is a guarantee of 2 years. If anything happens between these 2 years, you can come again back, and first either you can get your money back or otherwise you can get a replacement item. If the guarantee can operate between three parties also, this is a credible party which is known to both of these two parties. Suppose this is party PNB, this is party PSU, this is party state. So a PSU is run by a particular state. Let us say, for example, a state of Uttar Pradesh you can take, right? So Uttar Pradesh is running a PSU, and then PSU tries to go to PNB and asks for a loan, but PNB refuses that. Looking at your balance sheets and track record, I don't think I'll be able to pay you loan. So they go back to, because PSUs are public sector enterprises, they are run by state. So they go back to state and they request that you kindly ask PNB to provide us soft loans on your guarantee. Why state ki guarantee works? Because state is sovereign lender, right? So because it is considered an economy that state has sovereign powers, and then state's guarantee when it comes to economy is one of the highest kind of guarantees that can be given in the context of economy, right? So by definition, state guarantee is a contingent liability. Contingent liability means it is not an immediate liability, but it could take a shape of liability if not fulfilled in the near future, right? Protecting the interest of lenders from the risk of default by the borrowers, right? So the context of this news was that since state PSUs are continuously lending from the banks with respect to the state government guarantees, the debts have accumulated to the tune of 9 lakh crores. So this 9 lakh crores of debt is considered as an unsustainable debt when it comes to the state governments. And in this context, there are various issues such as moral hazards. Okay, there are issues that you are lending to a non-performing person. Then there is a third issue with respect to the concept of state government guarantee, that it is not reflected in the annual financial statement. So it could balloon this crisis over the time. This crisis is looming up, and then it could create a kind of time that banks have lent all their money to PSUs. Those PSUs, that money which has been lent is not reflected in the deficit of the states. States are blinded by the various challenges or commitments to the PSUs, and then ultimately there could be a collapse, right? Economic collapse. So in this context, the key takeaway points, both with respect to your prelims as well as mains examination, the key recommendations given by RBI in this context are first one is the word guarantee should be included in the instrument which creates an obligation. Any instrument which creates a kind of obligation or contingent obligation which is contingent or otherwise for the state, the word guarantee should be used, right, for that state, for that agreement. The purpose for which, the second one, the purpose for which government guarantee are issued should be clearly defined. So if a particular PSU takes particular amount of loan on the guarantee of state government, it should be clearly defined that I am taking up this loan for the purchase of, let us say, new industry, purchase of new plant, and then that plant, whether it is needed or not, should be first seen by the state. It should not be an exorbitant unnecessary expenditure. Then the third recommendation is to consider fixing a ceiling for the incremental guarantees issued during the year at 5% revenue receipt or 5% of the GSDP. Only you can give the guarantees to the tune of 5% of revenue receipts that are received by the states. Only that much amount of guarantee for PSUs the state can undertake. Then there is a recommendation with respect to charging a minimum guarantee fee for guarantee extended as additional risk premium, right? And then the last recommendation was with respect to publishing and disclosing data resulting into, as per the Indian government accounting standards. See the problem again, we saw this problem in the past also, that various issues in the economy with respect to calculation of debt is because various states are having different methodologies and criteria with respect to the assessment of debt. So for this particular instance, RBI has recommended that whenever the state tries to ensure a guarantee of a, let us say, sick PSU, it should publish or disclose the data related to that particular guarantee in Indian government accounting standards, which will bring in more uniformity when it comes to the assessment of that particular debt. Moving on, the second aspect that we covered was with respect to the Great Indian Bustard. What is the syllabus mapping for this? Prelims में ecology and environment section, and then directly there have been questions with respect to various birds and flora and fauna that is part of our Indian biodiversity. What are the key takeaways from this particular portion, right? You can obviously go back and solve the MCQs also. And again, what are the key takeaways? This is incorporated in the critically endangered species. So critically endangered is one of the most severe category in which if wildlife is incorporated, उससे ऊपर only there is extinct in wild, which means it is only available in the protective environment, or extinct. Only these two categories are available above this category. So, and again, it enjoys the statutory protection under Wildlife Protection Act 1972. There are 4 species of Great Indian Bustard in India. First one is GIB, that is Great Indian Bustard. It is mostly found in Rajasthan and Gujarat, right? Then there is Lesser Folican, there is Bengal Florican, and Hobart Bustard. You will be unfortunately amazed to know that only around 150 species of 150, not species, 150 number to 200, 150 to 200 numbers of Great Indian Bustards are surviving in India now, and then only up close to 700 numbers of Floricans are surviving in the wild right now. Then there was a news with respect to global good gender equity and equality initiative. What is the syllabus mapping for this issue? The syllabus mapping is with respect to the current events of national and international importance, which are a area of inquiry from your prelims point of view. What is the context of this news? India has set up a global alliance for global good gender equity and equality. The next topic that we took from the mains standpoint was with respect to temple architecture. Now, why was this important? Because of the inauguration of Prabhu Sri Ram Janmabhoomi temple in Ayodhya. Why is it important for us? It is important because this temple is built in Nagara Shaili, means Nagara style, in the Panchayatana form. So what is the syllabus mapping for this issue? The syllabus mapping is with respect to this Indian culture, salient aspects of art forms, literature, architecture, and from the ancient to modern times. What are the key features of Nagara Shaili of temple architecture? The key features of Nagara Shaili of temple architecture that are noteworthy here is that the development started in 5th century AD onwards. Then Nagara style temples are built over the raised platform called as plinth. They lack elaborate boundary walls or gates. Then Shikhar or Kalash, Shikhar means the top or Kalash is rested on a circular base called as Amlika. What is Amlika? Amlika is a disc shaped structure which is sitting on the top of the main tomb, right? Then there are 2 to 3 mandaps from the starting to the end. And above Garbhagriha there exists Shikhar or pyramid shaped. So when we can seek the origin of this Nagara Shaili in the Gupta age, Gupta era, right? So Guptas were considered as one of the biggest patron of Nagar Shaili of temple architecture, and perhaps the oldest surviving temple in the Nagar Shaili is found at Udiyeshwara temple, which is located in Madhya Pradesh. It was made by the Parmara kings, that is the brother of King Bhoj of Bhopal, and then it reached its zenith in under the patronship of uh, rulers of MP, in Khajuraho. The name of the temple is Kandarya Mahadev Temple. Now let us discuss key differences or comparison in between the Nagara and Dravida style of temple architecture. Right. So Nagar Shaili is developed in the northern part of India and Dravida Shaili is developed in the southern part of India. You can go to the Compass website and see this detailed article written on the difference between Nagar Shaili and Dravid Shaili. Let us move ahead and see the last topic of the day. The news emerges from the issue the news that scientists have mapped the largest deep sea corals till date, which have been found in the oceans of Atlantic Ocean. Right? What is the syllabus mapping? Salient features of world geography. Right? What are the key features of this? What are the key features of deep sea corals? Which these corals can be differentiated between two aspects, right? The shallow corals, these are generally found in tropical waters. Deep sea corals, which are found in the waters of Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean above 60°. Right? So what is the key feature? First is that why are they called as deep sea corals? Because they are found at the depth of more than 50 meters. The second aspect is with respect to dark cold water. They are found in the dark cold waters of, let us say for example, Atlantic Ocean. It could be Indian Ocean also, or Pacific Ocean. Then they thrive in rocky habitation. They grow horizontally because they have very much huge expanse of space available to them. So they grow only horizontally. They have the liberty of growing horizontally. They don't need to fight for space and grow vertically. So that is what the reason behind, in tropical waters they have confined spaces and colonies develop one over the other and they take the shape of atoll, right? For example, Maldives, right? But since in deep sea corals they have enough and ample of space, they do not overlap over each other and take the shape of an atoll kind of island. Now let us discuss key adaptability mechanisms that are present for the deep sea corals. The first one being slow growth rate, right? Why? Because they do not eat nutrient rich diet. There is lack of sunshine at the depth of 50 meters, so there is not enough nutrition available to them, so it results into slow growth rate. Second is filter feeding. They have tentacles which allow them to filter feed, and because nutrient is so less at that depth, right? So they need these kind of adapting mechanisms so that they could find their feed. Then there is temperature stability, and then because there is a kind of temperature stability at that depth, these corals are prone to temperature shocks. Then pressure resistance, uh, they are resistant to pressure, and then they have an evolved skeleton so that they are resistant to pressure and thus create a strong base. They have a longer lifespan, and then they have a flexible diet. These are the key adaptations. See, adaptations are again an outward manifestation of the geographical location, right? The last article for the day was inspired by an article that came in the Indian Express. The title of that article was The Capex Push, Need for Capex Push, which is again an aspect that is inspired from the syllabus of General Studies Paper 3, GS3, which is government budgeting. The key takeaway part from that article is that we need to focus on more on capital expenditure. So what are the key takeaways? Why we need to focus more on capital expenditure? Because capital expenditure has more or very high multiplier effect. Multiplier effect means that whenever 1 rupee is put into a capital infrastructure, let us say infrastructure project or so, there is a gain or there is a multiplication of, let us say suppose a 3, so it will give back the dividends to the tune of 3 rupees. Then why capex push is important? Because it provides a virtuous cycle or virtuous push to the economic profile of the country. Then again, the third aspect that we dealt that day was with respect to the boost it provides to the private sector investment. And then the last aspect was with respect to the shift in investment from an economy which was considered as investment based economy. It will lead to an economy which is more tuned towards the capital infrastructure based push based economy. But however, there are again certain challenges with respect to providing a capex push. First one being salary obligations with respect to government of India. So salary account takes a lot of money out of the expendable income, that is expendable money that is available with the government of India. So salary obligations is one of the concern, and then second is social sector obligation. The social sector obligation again mandates mandatory kind of obligatory spending on the healthcare, education, other social security and social schemes. So these are the limitations and obligations which have to be kept in mind while performing the push towards the capex capital expenditure. That would be all for today. I hope you liked the session. Thank you for watching.